Are you up to date with the latest trends in fasting and ketogenesis? Then let me help you out with this review of KetoFast by Dr Joseph Mercola. The really clever thing that he's done with the KetoFast protocol is to bring together all the concerns about fasting and spending too much time in a ketogenic state with a brand new protocol that cycles between healthy periods of eating carbs, high fat and fasting. Hi, I'm Ian Tennant. Today I'm going to review KetoFast, the latest book by Dr Joseph Mercola. It was published this year by Hay House, and the subtitle for the book is Rejuvenate Your Health with a Step-by-Step Guide to Timing Your Ketogenic Meals. There's a few reasons why I wanted to review this book. I've followed Mercola's work for over a decade now, and secondly is that it combines two really popular health trends at the moment, so fasting and ketogenesis. Now, the title KetoFast brings together those two trends. It's a genius of marketing in one sense, but is Mercola saying anything new? In short, I think the answer is yes, and I'll come to that very soon. But first of all, I'd like to set the context a little bit with a bit of background about ketogenesis, ketones, and fasting, and then we'll get stuck into the book. This book is published only 2 years after Joseph Mercola published Fat for Fuel. And in those 2 short years, the health and fitness industry has evolved so much, and there's been so much more research done on fasting and ketogenic diets. So this book really is an evolution of what Mercola himself and all the other experts are learning day by day. So you're probably familiar with the idea of fasting. It's just when we're not eating. But what about ketogenesis? Let me explain. Ketones are a broad family of chemicals, and if you think of acetone or the smell of nail polish, you'll know what a ketone is. Now, our bodies produce ketones when we start to break down fat for fuel. It's simply what's produced when our body chops up long chains of fuel to help us liberate energy from the fat. Now, for a long time, being in a state of ketogenesis, which means, there's lots of ketones flowing around our body, was thought to be bad. And this is because having lots of ketones is indicative of people who are struggling to manage their diabetes, their blood sugar level and insulin, and their body starts to break down fat and protein as well. And as a result, there's a huge rise in the amount of ketones. And so it's actually a sign of danger when people aren't managing their diabetes very well. For this reason, it was often viewed as being bad to be in a state of ketogenesis. However, now it's known that it's really healthy and perfectly normal for us to actually cycle between states of being in ketogenesis or fat burning and relying on glucose or carbohydrates for fuel. And that's really what this book is all about. So let's take a look inside. I bought the Kindle edition of this book. It's about 200 pages long and it's split into 9 chapters. The first 6, you could say, are kind of introductory. They give the background to fasting, to ketones, and to the numerous health benefits of following this type of diet. And they kind of do a really good job of giving someone who doesn't really know too much about this topic a real thorough understanding of where the research is currently at. Chapter 7 and 8 are specifically about the KetoFast protocol, which Joseph Mercola is a term he's coined for this specific way of cycling different types of nutrients and fasting throughout the week. Chapter 7 is specifically what the KetoFast protocol is, and Chapter 8 is how to go about implementing it in your day-to-day life. And then there's one final chapter, number 9, which is more about the tools for measuring your health and lab tests. So back to these first 6 chapters. The first one is Joseph Mercola's opinion on why we get sick. So it's a lot about modern lifestyles, the way we eat at the moment, and how that's harming our health. Then he dives into the history of fasting, so for religious reasons and so on, how fasting has been, a perfectly safe method for thousands of years. Then he looks into the latest understanding of the mechanisms of fasting, and this includes some of the benefits that things that are activated in our body when we stop eating. So it's not really this idea of when we stop eating, our body shuts down and everything goes still. Actually, it's quite the opposite, and things actually rev up and our body goes into a different gear. I'm going to cover some of these processes in another video in more detail, but one of them, which is very big and another trend, is called autophagy, and that really means, if you break that word up, it means autophagy. Auto meaning self in this context, and phagy to meaning to eat. So even as adults, our bodies are constantly changing, our cells are dividing and growing, and there's a lot of death and decay, and parts of our cells get worn out, they get kind of oxidized, damaged, and our body needs ways to repair this. Now, if, let's say, I burnt my finger, there's different ways that my body can clear up that damage, and the same for general day-to-day house cleaning in the body. One is a white blood cell can come along like a Pac-Man and gobble that cell up and clean it away. But autophagy is a slightly different way of cleaning up our body. In 2016, a Nobel Prize was actually given to a researcher called Yoshinori Oshumi for his pioneering work on this study of how cells recycle themselves through autophagy. So rather than a whole cell needing to be gobbled up and eaten and digested, what happens in autophagy is that damaged parts of our cells get sealed off into a kind of stomach inside of the cell, and then that's digested, recycled, and the end result is a full, complete cell which is more healthy and vital. It's a kind of rejuvenation process. Now, guess what? When we fast, autophagy is activated. So you could think of fasting as a kind of planned factory shutdown. So it's a time for your body to have a deep clean, repair damaged components and parts. And it's a really good thing. So that's all covered in chapter 3, along with the other benefits such as stem cell activation. Chapter 4 is about the different types of fasting. Now, there's been so many different protocols for fasting, anything from time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting, which are basically, time-restricted eating is basically just compressing each day the window within which you eat all your meals, or to long day, multi-day water fasts, which mean you only drink water sometimes for several days in a row. So then in chapter 5, Dr. Mercola goes on to ask, is fasting safe? And he presents a really balanced discussion looking at both sides of the argument, being very cautious for people who are at risk from going for long periods without eating, but also saying that, this is something our bodies are well adapted to periods without food. What he has done in this book, and this is really new compared to his recent views only just a year or so ago, is to look at what he's calling the dark side of fasting. Now, I covered a little bit about this in my New Year video about detoxification. So basically, what happens is that when we stop eating for a long time and our bodies start to burn fat for fuel, that's a good thing. However, these days, with all the persistent organic toxic substances and pollutants in our environment, our fatty tissues store a lot of these to keep them away from other organs in our body. Now, when we start to burn fat for fuel, these get released and they circulate around our body, so we have to be careful not to increase our toxic load flowing through our bloodstream too much. And this is one of the great adaptations that Dr. Joseph Mercola has introduced into the KetoFast book. It's really preparing ourselves for this release of toxic substances into our bloodstream as we start to fast, and supporting our body's detoxification processes so that we can eliminate them for the benefit of our overall health. So now we're on to chapter 7, the KetoFast protocol. And it's quite a simple concept really. It's just a matter of, in any particular week, cycling between different ways of eating and fasting. 1 or 2 days of the week are spent having a relatively high amount of carbs, healthy carbs. 1 or 2 days of fasting, it's actually partial fasting, so you're still consuming small amounts of food that help your body detoxify. And then the remaining rest time of the week is spent eating a relatively high-fat diet. So that's to further encourage ketogenesis. Chapter 8 is all about how to implement the KetoFast protocol. A step-by-step guide. I'll show you the screenshot of the simplified process here. And it seems what Joseph Mercola has tried to do is to really balance all the opinions and his own personal experience and other people's, other experts' opinion on fasting, and come up with an approach which is relatively easy to comply with. One thing I should say is that it requires, or he suggests, that you become fat adapted. So that means that you spend at least a month compressing your eating window, all your meals between 6 or 8 hours a day, according to the process suggested in Fat for Fuel, so that you're prepared for doing this keto fast protocol. He suggests monitoring your ketone levels in your blood. There's several ways to do this. You can buy a kit called Keto Mojo, or there's some urine strip tests. Now this is to check that you have actually got your body into a ketogenic state. So I'm going to finish off now and summarise with a few thoughts about the KetoFast protocol. So I think Dr Mercola has done a great job at updating us all on where the trends for diets in general, but also fasting and ketogenesis, have come in the past decade. So for a long time we were told that it was good to eat lots of small regular meals, keep fats, levels of fat low, high carb, low fat, to snack in between meals to help us regulate our blood sugar level. And then we swung completely in the other direction with paleo and ketogenic diets, saying high fat is good, even Atkins, that sort of diet. Now what Mercola has done with this book is to settle somewhere in the middle, a nice balanced view, where he's appreciating that we can cycle between periods of eating relatively high, good quality carbs, then relatively high amounts of fats, and then also some fasting to give our body a break, to help us detoxify and to activate all these other processes. And what about any criticism or comments I have of the protocol? Well, I think like any diet program or protocol, for some people this will be hard to stick to. Joseph Mercola suggests some sort of blood measurements and tests, which will be great for people who love doing that sort of thing, but for some people they may find the calorie counting a bit of a chore. Having said that, I think you could still follow this protocol more loosely without needing to calorie count, or maybe just do it for a little while until you've got used to it. And there's other ways to figure out whether you're in a state of ketogenesis or not, rather than relying on tests for ketones. You can look for indicators such as whether you're losing body fat and so on. And the other thing I'd say is that I think giving the KetoFast protocol is a great idea. However, you may not need to stick to it rigorously for forever. Other people who recommend fasting, Michael Mosley, for example, who popularised the 5-2 diet and has come up more recently with the Fast 800. He says, after a period of a few months, when you've reaped all the benefits of his protocol, and I think the same could be true for KetoFast, it's more than likely going to be possible that you can kind of dip in and out of it to just maintain good levels of health as you need to. That's all from me today. Please like my Facebook page, Thrive and Enjoy, for more updates about my upcoming book, Restoring Balance, which is out this October. It includes lots more information about cyclical feasting and fasting, as well as other ways to keep our body in tune with natural rhythms and cycles.